Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jim Hirschauer, and today we're going to be talking about branching strategies and how they impact CI/CD and software delivery. I'm joined today by Prashant, who is one of the co-founders of Devtron. So what I'm going to do is spend just a couple of minutes introducing Devtron to you. In case you've never heard of Devtron, it's going to be a very short introduction. And then we're going to hand off the bulk of the content over to Prashant so he can talk about these branching strategies. So first of all, I'd love to introduce why Devtron really exists. So many companies today are migrating towards Kubernetes. They're taking this journey that they go on where they need to adopt Kubernetes, get a cluster built, get their first application onboarded, and then try and go ahead and reproduce that for the rest of their applications that they want to onboard onto Kubernetes. Then they're also, in the meantime, trying to accelerate their software delivery practices while incorporating Kubernetes into the mix. And finally, people are trying to make sure that the system is running as stable as possible, performing as good as it possibly can perform for the customer base. Now, without Devtron, people are realizing that this process typically takes months and potentially even years for some companies. There are also certain companies that try and adopt Kubernetes and struggle with it. And some companies we found have even abandoned that process of trying to onboard onto Kubernetes and have gone back to their other types of environments. So let's contrast that with the purpose of Devtron. With Devtron, we see companies within days, they've built clusters, they've onboarded applications into those clusters, and they're going through that onboarding process with the rest of their apps that they want to migrate, right? With all good, solid production practices. Then they're also capable of building that maturity where they're accelerating their software delivery processes and making sure that they're building with advanced deployment patterns like canary deployments, blue-green deployments. They're capable of getting there in weeks. So this is really the purpose for Devtron, is to accelerate this journey onto Kubernetes, the adoption and the migration to Kubernetes, to make that process much shorter and much less painful for a company, so that they can get onto Kubernetes and just continue to build out new features for their end user base. So let's take a quick look at what Devtron actually offers from a capabilities perspective. There are four major capabilities. I break these down into manage, prepare, build, deploy, and secure. So from a management perspective, when someone first spins up a Kubernetes cluster, one of the first things that they really should do is put Devtron on that cluster. The reason being is that Devtron makes it much easier to see all of the related metrics. It's sort of like a replacement for kubectl. It's going to show anybody who, whether they have a lot of experience or very little experience, it's going to show them all of the metrics for Kubernetes. And then they'll also be able to prepare that cluster for running production workloads, right? We have this Helm chart store where they can go ahead and deploy software that's required for production into those clusters. Next thing that's going to happen is people are going to want to use CI/CD or like GitOps if they choose to use GitOps. And so they're going to need help building and deploying that software. Devtron offers very fast CI as well as CD capabilities in more traditional pipeline sense, or from a GitOps sense as well. And we've really enhanced some of those GitOps type of capabilities to make up for some possible shortcomings that people bump into occasionally with GitOps. And then lastly here under secure, we also do application vulnerability scanning throughout those CI/CD pipelines. So it's important to make sure you understand if there are any vulnerabilities that are known vulnerabilities in that code base before you ever move that into production. So we offer that as well. So that's just a quick overview of, at a very high level, of why Devtron exists and those core capabilities that we bring to bear. Now Prashant is going to go ahead and walk us through branching strategies and how those can impact CI/CD and software delivery in general. So Prashant, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Jim. Hello, everyone. In this particular presentation, we are going to talk about the different branching strategies that are possible when we are developing a code and how they correlate to the CI and the CD system. I'll walk you through like 4 different strategies. We'll build upon them. So the first one is something, as you would see, I have said like absolutely must avoid. This is something that I don't recommend and nobody should be practicing it. Though I've seen like small startups, very, very small startups with 1 or 2 folks, 2 or 3 early folks doing it. And then we'll keep on like talking about like why it should not be done and what is a better way to do it from the branching strategy perspective. And then we'll flip the side and we'll say that, okay, if this is the branching strategy, how does your CI/CD pipeline should look like? And I'll also talk about like briefly about why your CI/CD pipeline should look like, how it will unblock your developers. Otherwise, if you have a impedance mismatch between your branching strategy and the CI/CD pipeline that you have, then again, the productivity of the developer would not be where it is supposed to be. With that preamble, let me dive directly into what these things are. Right. So the first strategy that I'm going to talk about, as I said, like I've seen some of the small scale startups doing it, where what happens is people are building things on their laptop and they would create a branch. If they have to build something, they would just like quickly code in the branch, they'll build an image and they'll deploy the code from the image itself. They may merge back to the main, they may not merge back to the main. But the idea is that these are the branches from which you can release things directly into production. Now, as you see, it becomes very, very difficult with this particular strategy to keep track that there is no accidental reversal of a particular feature. For example, in branch B1, I send out certain feature. In branch B2, if I forgot to take merge of B1, then I would have sort of accidentally reverted back the code of B1. So this is a strategy which I say that however small you are, you should absolutely avoid. But let's say, just assuming that if you want to still, for some reason, you want to do this strategy, let me quickly show you on the website as to how we can implement this strategy. Right. So if I go to the website, can you guys see my Jim? Can you sort of tell me if you can see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it. Go ahead.
So if you see over here, so this is an application that I have created beforehand. I haven't created any workflows in this. Okay, let me log in again. So yeah, so I have created a small application for this particular demo perspective. What I have done is I have added a public repo to it. This is a small public repo available at the Devtron Labs. It's nothing but a Node.js app, which has one simple API where it returns the name of the city, name of certain cities which are encoded in, and it gives you a lot of logs so that you can just get a feel of the things, right? So this Git repository is connected, and then I have connected it to a Docker registry where it will be pushed. The images which will be created will be pushed and pulled from. And then, of course, this repository comes with a Docker file, which I've connected over here to say that, okay, the Docker file is part of the repository, and this is where the Docker file is available, right? And then this application runs on 8080 port. Even though it's a Node.js application, we have made it run on 8080 port. So I have just selected 8080 port. RAM and CPU that's provided over here, I have kept the same. CPU. Oh, yeah. So the limit and the request are pretty small, but I have kept them the same. The reason being that this is a Node.js app, which is a test app, so I've just done it. And then I clicked on the save button, right? So this essentially is the configuration which is required to deploy this code in whichever environment I want to deploy it, right? And then I go to the workflow editor. In Devtron, workflow editor is a place where we create the complete workflow, where the image should be built from, where it should be deployed, what are the different stages, if there is some approval process. So all of those things are done over a visual editor, so that you can quickly see like what kind of pipeline is being created and what kind of flow would be to a particular environment, right? So that's this. Then this is that particular application that I was talking about. I have already created few things on this just so that I can showcase things to you in this particular demo. I'll keep on talking about them as and when we proceed, right? Now, coming back to the first strategy that I was talking about, typically in Jenkins, people use a lot of times this is strategy where they would say that, oh, I can change any branch and then I can deploy it to a particular environment. So in Devtron, it's same as saying that it's a branch regex dot star. That means there is no restriction on the name of the branch that you want to put in. If you want to put some restriction, then you may start with that. For example, if I'm saying that branch should start with release, then I'll say release.star. But as I was talking about this strategy where you can release from any of the branches, you may just give .star as a branch strategy. This you have created a build pipeline which says that whenever a new commit comes in, it should build automatically. And in that case, I may, for example, just to give you an example, let's say Defton demo is a production environment in our case, right? So I may just connect it to the production environment. And then what I'm going to do is I go to build and deploy. I select a branch. Again, let me select the master branch over here. So it shows the git commits which have come on the master branch. I can select a branch and I can start building it. I can also change the branch if I want to. For example, now there is a different branch from which we have done the which we have done the development. I can select that branch. I can start the build and I can do the deployment. Right. Again, as I said, I don't recommend this way of deployment. But in case if you are doing this deployment, please ensure that all the images that you have used to deploy on this particular environment are available to you in the history, because in case you release a code which has for some reason a feature rollback or which has some bugs in it, you would want to have that history so that you can quickly roll back to a previous image so that you don't end up breaking systems of your users, right? In case of Defton, right now there is no deployment which has happened, but if the deployment has happened, then over here you will see all the previous images which have been deployed. Sorry, it doesn't matter from which particular branch it has been deployed, right? So this is like briefly about if you have to do this way. Again, as I said, I would not recommend this to any company or any personal. This is not something that you should be doing, right? And Git makes these things easier also, as we'll see in the second slide. If we can switch back to the slide, please. So if I go to the next slide, so this is a strategy which a lot of companies follow, and this is one of the strategies which is highly recommended by GitHub also, right? So this strategy essentially says that you have a main branch. Earlier it was called master, now it is a main branch. And that is the branch from which you are releasing to production, right? So you're not releasing from any other branch. The only branch from which you are releasing to production is the main branch. Now, what happens is if you have to build a new feature, you branch out from the main branch, right? So if you see, I'm branching out from the main branch to build a feature. And once you are confident that this feature is working as expected, then you merge it back to the main branch. And from the main branch, then you release it to the production, right? You may have a UAT environment or other environment in place, but essentially you are finally releasing it to the production, right? Now, the way I look at it is this branching strategy is ideal if you have a small team and the number of or the duration of the building a feature is small, right? Why do I say that? Because you don't want your main branch to be blocked, right? The moment you merge back something to the main branch, now the problem is that if you find out any bug in the previous version which requires a hot fix, you cannot release it from the main branch because you have merged something into the main branch and you're not confident whether you can release it out to the users or not. So it is very, very critical in this case that you only merge those things which are stable into the main branch. And if you have to keep on doing that, then your team size should be small, right? Because if there are too many branches, feature branches which are floating around because you have multiple developers working on it, they will keep on stepping on each other's toes, right? So for example, feature 1 and feature 2 have tested with the main branch, but feature 1 merged into the main branch. Now feature 2 has to again test it with the main branch, right? Because this merging should be kind of a no ops. So in this case, before I merge to main, I should be 100% confident that things would work once I would merge in main, right? And how do you do that? You do it via PR, right? So you raise a PR. So let's say if I've created a feature 1 branch, I'll raise a PR. In the PR, I'll merge main into this branch, the feature 1 branch, test it out. I know that because this is going to work perfectly fine. I may do all the bug fixes now because it is working perfectly fine. Then I merge into main, and this is kind of a no ops because I know that everything on main had already been merged and it is working perfectly as expected. And that's why when I merge it back into main, nothing is going to change ever, right? So this is, and as I said, like because of this, it is ideal for small teams, because as the teams become, as more and more members are building things parallelly, uh, they would sort of block other from merging back in, because they would have to retest it with the new merge which has gone from a different feature, right? Now, just to showcase to you like how the same thing will look on Devtron, let me take you back to the workflow editor page. Is my workflow editor page visible now?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. So what I'll do over here is, now, as I was saying, in that case, one of the things, important things, is you are releasing from the master branch, right? So I've created the master branch. My system has the, so okay, so my GitHub repository is slightly old. So instead of the main, it has the master, it has the previous version. So it's the master branch, which is still the major branch in the system. So I'm going to use the master, but in your case, it may as well be a main branch. It doesn't matter. It may be any nomenclature that you might be following, right? So what I have done is I have made this a branch fixed, and I've set it as a master, right? So what I'm saying now is any new commit that comes to the main master branch, I'm going to build it automatically. And I'll deploy it automatically, right? Because as I said, I don't want my main branch to be blocked at all. So I would want anything which got merged into main branch to be released immediately. That is the level of confidence that I should have in my system. If let's say you want a UAT kind of an environment, what you can do is you can have a UAT environment. I can add a UAT environment, right? And for example, let's say QA is the UAT environment, right? So over here, if you see now, what I've done is I have introduced a Devtron-QA UAT environment in between, and then there is a production environment. You can definitely do that. But as I said, the idea is you should not be holding onto UAT environment for days. That's not possible. You have to complete the UAT environment very quickly so that your main branch keeps on getting unblocked, right? But then what about the quick preview testings that I was talking about, the PR testing, right? So you should have a PR based branch at least. And in this case, I'm saying that the target branch name has to be master, right? Because I want things to be tested when they are about to be merged to master, right? So whenever a PR gets opened for a master branch, that's when I would want things to be tested, right? Now, in this case, when we are talking about continuously merging back into main, it's very, very important that just building something should not be considered a pass, right? Because some functionality might have broken. So in this case, it becomes very, very important that you have some environment. I'm just picking up any environment at random, but you should have, let me not pick prod, let me pick preview. So you should have some environment, right? And let me not make it auto, let me make it manual for now, right? So you should have some environment where you would be testing out preview. You may even have multiple environments where you might be testing out previews, right? Because there might be multiple PRs also which might be going around. Though, as I had mentioned earlier, every time a merge happens in main, you would have to build the image again with the new commits which have happened in main, right? But essentially your system will start looking like this, where there is a master branch from which you are continuously building things and releasing them into production. And then there are pull request based things where uh, you are saying that if there is a pull request which is open for any of the for the master branch or the main branch, then it has to start building things automatically, start creating images, and then you can deploy it to a particular environment, test it out. If it's great, you may go comment on PR, merge PR so that it can be deployed to master, right? Now, when I create a pull request based system, if you see over here in Devtron, it gives you a webhook URL and a secret. Now you need to use this webhook URL and secret, go to GitHub and or GitLab, and you have to enter these things over there so that they can send a webhook, right? So I have already configured it, but just to show you, in this case, for example, I have configured. Okay, so I'll not be able to. Okay, so it's asking me for authentication, but essentially this is the webhook that I have already configured, which you can which would keep on sending things to Devtron in case of every new push which might be happening, or every new PR which is opened, right? So in all of those cases, you would start seeing in the build and deploy, you would start seeing material over here. Uh, because it's asking me to, I don't have my authenticator with me right now. I'm not able to showcase it to you. But essentially, if I would have updated anything over here on the PR, that Git hash would have started appearing over here, and I could have used it to build the image. That image would have taken the master branch, merged it together, and deployed it on a particular environment, right? So this is kind of the workflow that you would have. You can have more environments. For example, you may have told people that, oh, you can, if you are creating a new feature, you can start it with feature, anything starting with feature, and that's another pipeline that you may create and say that, okay, if anything starting with feature is coming, then let's say we have uh, preview DCD as one of the environments where developers can deploy, right? So you can create these different pipelines also for the developers. As I said, the biggest problem in this is that you have to continuously keep on releasing things into production. If you block your pipeline for whatever reason, it's gonna create huge trouble unblocking it, right? So preview environments are your best friends. Test out everything, be 100% sure, and then just merge in main and release it out, right? So that's the kind of study that you should be following. Now let me go back to the slide to sort of talk about the next strategy, which is an evolution of this strategy, right? So in the previous strategy, we were saying that we continuously keep on merging into main, right? And now, as I was saying, what happens is you have 3 or 4 features which are parallelly available for merge into main. And the moment you merge one feature, the problem is that rest of the features have to take back merge from main again and test things out again, right? So it's like rework happening every time, and QA team has like very short window. So the other mechanism which people use is they would start having an integration branch, right? So in this case, if you see the branch which is starting from main and merging back into main, that's an integration branch. So there are 2 features which are ready. You take a branch from main, you merge those features into the main branch, you test it out, you deploy it somewhere, you test it out completely, and then you merge it back into the main branch, right? So this is what keeps on happening again and again and again, because as I was saying earlier, now there are multiple features which have to be merged to the main together. So how do we go about doing it? Now, one of the challenges which this system has is that for the duration where this integration branch is in picture, if any new feature is being cut, or the previous features are being completed, because this release branch is still in between, they are not able to take merge from this branch. So they have to like kind of hold themselves, or they will have to merge from this branch later on, right? So those kind of dependencies starts happening because the life cycle of this branch is now slightly longer, and people would have to wait for this branch to become stable and merge into main so that they can take a merge back from the main. So let's say if you have to build a feature which is on top of the feature which is in this integration branch, you'll have to wait for the integration branch to be mature and merged before you can you can sort of start building on your phase 2 of the feature, right? In this case, any of the bugs that you have, you would fix them on this temporary integration branch, right? But please understand, you're not releasing from this temporary integration branch. This temporary integration branch is to have all the features, bundle all the features which are to be released and stabilize it, right? Don't ever release from the release branch. It always has to be released from the main branch, right? So let me now take you back to the Devtron and show it to you like how it would look like in that case, right? Now, what is happening in this case is the integration branch would also have a merge request which will be raised for the main, right? So okay, so let's go step by step. So one is you are still releasing from the master branch, so this first pipeline still stays. Let's go to the second pipeline, the pull request pipeline, right? Now as we were saying in the pull request, in that case, what is happening is you are testing things out completely when a pull request is being raised while you are merging from main and doing everything, right? In this case, if you look, actually you are not testing at the pull request. You have created an integration branch and whole of your testing will happen on the integration branch. Pull request is kind of a no ops operation because you have taken from the main. This integration branch, whenever it is merging back into main, it should be kind of a no ops. And that is why your preview at max would look at saying that, oh, can I compile the code properly or not? All right. So in that case, that's why for preview, I don't need an environment. In case of a PR, I just need a build step, and this build step should be able to post back, right? So, and again, I'll not be able to demonstrate because my GitHub token has expired, but essentially I have a GitHub pull request updater. I can say trigger build even fail. I have created a pad token, and that pad token is, sorry, branch demo PR token over here. I have saved that value, and I'll just put that over here. I don't want a Docker ID. I want update status, right? So what this would do is, this will, after the build, it will update PR back with the, just to show like some of the previous runs that I did. So if you see it saying build status succeeded, so it like posted back into the PR to say that what happened with the build. So this is what you would need for from a preview branch perspective, right? Now we said that we are gonna release from a temporary branch. It's better to have a particular pattern for the release branches that you would be creating. Even though they are like short time span branches, you would have them and then you will delete them. But still better to have, for example, it may be a release dot star uh, as a branch regex, where I'm saying that whenever we are creating a release, we will merge the features into release hyphen something. It may be release hyphen 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.2.1, right? So this is what I'm gonna do, and whenever I have to actually build it, I'll go over there, I'll put the name of the branch, save it, and it will get me the git hashes from there, right? So this is what I'm gonna do. In this particular case, I'll create a release branch for the release. Preview as a PR, as I was saying, is a non-entity, and once something gets merged into master, you may again have a UAT, and then you may release it to main, to the production. Again, the caveat still holds. Master has to be at all the points unblocked, right? Because if there is a bug fix, uh, in this case, if there is a bug fix, you may directly branch out from main, fix it, and merge it back into main, right? So that is why if you are merging something into main, it should be in a situation where it can directly be taken to production, right? So that's again the caveat which we have to follow. And again, you can have more branches, more build pipelines for feature kind of a branches, as we had in the previous one also, saying that feature dot star, and then it may point to some particular environment. Uh, for example, this one, right? So this is the environment to which it will deploy. So this is the kind of the structure that would look for you if you're using the integration pipelines, which are short duration pipelines, which you would use to sort of release, which you would sort of use to test the integration of multiple features. Again, remember, you are not releasing from the release branch. If you see, I'm deploying it to preview DCD. I'm not deploying it to Defton Devo, which I said is a production environment for me, right? So that's something that we have to be sure of, right? So this is essentially the evolution of that, right? But as I was saying, the problem in this case is uh, because my release branch is temporary, I don't know where do I take feature request from. If there is a feature 1 which is released and I have to create version 2 of feature 1, I have to wait. What do I do, right? So for that, there is still again another modification in the branching strategy, and let me go back to the slides to walk you through that. So this is the final kind of a branching strategy in a way. So in this, if you look at it, it's saying that you at any point of time there are like two long living branches. One is a main, another is a develop. Again, nomenclature doesn't matter, but essentially there is one branch from which you are actually deploying to the production, and there is another branch where your all features keep on merging back, right? And if you see, one of the major differences is if you have to build a feature, you are branching it out from develop, you are not branching it out from main. You branch it out from main only and only when you have to do a hot fix. At all other times, you are branching out from develop, right? So you branch out from develop, you merge back to develop. You branch out from develop, you merge back to develop, right? Now, when you have to create a release, it is similar to the previous one, but instead of taking things out from main, you are again taking things out from develop, and you don't have to merge anything because develop. So essentially, what happens is, think of it like this: you kept on merging features into the develop branch, and let's say QA has tested out till this point of time where they are fairly confident. Then you branch out from this particular commit hash, you create a release branch out of it, and then you again test it out. If there are any bug fixes, you keep on doing on this particular branch, right? So this becomes your branch which is getting release ready, right? Once this is release ready, you merge it to main and you merge it back to develop also, so that any of the bug fixes that you have done during that time come back to the develop branch also, right? So this is important in this case, that it comes back over here also. It doesn't remain only in the main, right? So that's something which is important, right? The second thing which is happening is for the hot fix, right? Okay, I missed an arrow over here. Of course, in the release branch, you have to merge main at any point of time, right? And that will guarantee that the bug fix which went into main, if you take out any a new release branch and you merge main back into it, that bug fix that you sent, that comes back into that thing, right? So I missed that arrow, but essentially this, in the release branch, you would have a commit coming from the main also. So it's a mix of merge develop and main. You are branching it out from develop branch, and then you are merging main also back into it, right? So this is the major difference. For the hotfix, you are branching it out from main, you are fixing it, you are pushing it back into main, and also you are pushing it onto the develop branch, so that the developers also have the bug fix at any point of time, right? So this is the major difference between the previous one and this one, where your develop is constantly available. The advantage of develop being constantly available is that in the phase where you have feature 1 built and then you want to build the version v2 of feature 1, develop has all the code, so you can just start building on top of it and keep on taking the commits or the bug fixes later on. That's one of the major advantage. The disadvantage of it is, now you have lost the flexibility of which feature do you want to release first, right? Because now develop branch has its own history. There is a sequence in which it is moving forward. Now if you want to release something at any point of time, you can only take one commit from git hash from sorry develop branch, and you would get all the history, the features that you have merged before that. You cannot decide to, let's say, take a feature which is merged later on but not take a feature which was merged before this, right? So in this case, it becomes very, very important that you are merging something into develop where you are absolutely sure that it is working perfectly fine, right? So in this case, uh, that is one of the important things, that you maintain the sanctity of the develop branch also. If you are not sure that this feature is gonna go live in production or not, this is still experimental, we don't know we want to release it or not, please don't merge into develop. You can't do anything with it. Of course you can revert, but it's not recommended whenever there is a shared branch, right? So that's why you should not be doing it, right? So this is what it is. In case there are multiple versions of your software that you're running together, and I'm not talking about canary and rolling deployment, because canary and rolling deployments, in case of canary and rolling deployment, ultimately v2 is supposed to overtake v1. But in case where you are running multiple tests, A/B tests which are running on, or you have multiple customers and you have to do different deployments for each customer, run different instances for each customer. In those cases also, this makes a lot of sense. The only thing that you have to be careful of is the hot fix, right? Because what is happening is, let's say if version v1, v2 and v3 are running parallelly, and there is a bug fix which is required in v1, it would be required in v2 and v3 also, right? So that is something that you have to be absolutely sure of. So you branch out from a commit for v1, you do the hot fix. You will have to branch out from v2 and merge it into v2 also, and you will have to branch out from v3 and merge it into v3 also, right? So that you know that the all of these have the fixes, and in that case you would be releasing from the hotfix branch, and not just from the main branch, right? Because the main branch has moved ahead. There is version v1 which is released, there is version v2 also which is currently running, and v3 also which is currently running. So v1, v2, v3, all three are running parallelly. So in this case you can't just merge back and release from the top. So in this case it becomes like you are releasing from the hotfix also. But what is most important is that you merge back the hotfix into the main as well as in the develop branch. So that's one of the difference which will come in if you are running multiple versions, for example for A/B testing or for customer end deployment also, right? Where for different customers you are running different instances because of legal or customer requirement or data requirement, right? So how does it look like? It primarily looks similar to this, with the difference that now there is a fixed uh, develop branch also. So that's one of the differences which is there. And of course you would have a particular environment where you might be testing things out continuously. And also the pull request that we had, now pull request has to be raised not for the master branch but for the develop branch, which has to be like continuously tested, because developers have to test that before they merge into the develop. Because as I said, once you merge into develop, there is no going back. It has to be released to the master now, right? So in that case your architecture starts looking a bit like this. And in this case also what you can say is now and in the case of multi-version, because I said you can release from the master branch or you can release from the hotfix branch, right? So then it will start looking like this, where you are saying that in the production, either I can release from the master branch or I can release from the hotfix branch uh, because of the versions, because master has moved ahead. So I'll have to release from the hotfix, right? So this is, in a nutshell, kind of the pipeline that would look for you. And this is like still a simplistic pipeline that I've created for each of the use cases. There may be tons of other things. You may be doing a security scanning, you may be doing code analysis, code quality analysis, right? Again, remember where you have to do that. Most of the time in masters you would be implementing it, but that would be to catch the corner case. Most of the time one of your major branches earlier, whether for example it may be develop branch or it may be pull request, where you should be fixing any of the issues that you might be having with code quality or container scanning or vulnerabilities or any other things that you may want to do, right? So there are like tons of other things that you need to do, but this is kind of a simplistic pipeline that would look like, and in Devtron you can create that in like, so I think I've taken like 30 minutes where I've been walked you through 4 different branching strategies, creating and deleting things as we kept on talking about it, right? So uh, now I'll go back to the slides and I'm open to any questions that anyone might have on this.
All right, thanks, Prashant. So if anyone does have questions, please type them into the comments area and we can answer those questions. While we're waiting, Prashant, I have a question for you. What branching strategy is used by Devtron, and why does Devtron choose that strategy?
Right. So in case of Devtron, what happens is our system get deployed on customers' infrastructure itself. So Devtron is a self-hosted kind of a system, right? And because of that, we might be running multiple versions across different customers. So we had been using the strategy number 3 till now, wherein we had primarily used a temporary branch, an integration branch to test things out before merging it into main. But now we are graduating towards the this branching strategy number 4, where we are now we have now decided to use a develop branch and a main branch and merge everything back into the develop branch. And from develop, we would sort of merge into a release branch, and then merge into main to release it. So that's the strategy that we are going to use, because as I said, like in our case, different customers may be on different versions because of different reasons. For example, it's a Black Friday sale coming up. They don't want Devtron to be released on their infrastructure because of the deployments or any high critical needs that they might have. So this is the strategy that we are moving towards now, the strategy number 4, branching strategy number 4.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions right now. So thanks everyone for joining this webinar. If you'd like to learn more about Devtron, you can go ahead and visit us at devtron.ai. You can also follow us on LinkedIn by scanning that QR code that you see on the screen right now. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.